Hey guys, welcome to day 40. We've been doing this for a long time. It's Thursday. Okay, so the video content for today, we're going to review the model sentences which I had you translate on Tuesday this week. Then we're going to go through a formal grammar lesson. All right, what I'd like you to do during this lesson is to take notes. Okay, you don't have to take notes on the model sentences. But if you do want to jot some things down that I say that you think might be helpful, that's a good idea. Okay, once we hit the portion, it's going to say it, it's like grammar lesson. That's when you know you should start taking notes for sure, though. Okay, so get something, a pen, paper, or if you want to type up your notes, that's fine too, because at the end of this video lesson, your job is to submit your notes. Okay? And make sure they're good and neat too, so that you can read them and use them. Alright, so without further ado, here we go. Alrighty, so above, if you notice, I've put the English, above I've put the Latin, and below I've given you the translation. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to just read through the Latin first, then I'm going to kind of highlight it and see how we go from there. Okay, and highlighting it's pretty much color. I'm just going to color code it for us. Okay, so you can kind of compartmentalize and see what's going on. All right, Quintus ad thermas venit. All right, so Quintus venit, came, ad thermas, to the baths. Okay? All right, so you've got your subject, you've got a verb, and a prepositional phrase here. All right, and as you can see, Quintus is arriving at the baths. Yay. Next, Quintus servo pecuniam dedit. All right, so Quintus gave money to the slave. Okay? So that's how that works. And there he is. There's your boy Quintus giving money to the slave. Okay, moving along here. Amici quintum laete salutaverunt, quod diem natalem celebrabat. All right, so the friends greeted, okay, remember it's perfect tense. Okay, so greeted Quintus happily, it's an adverb. Okay, quod, all right, that's a connection word, because he was celebrating his diem natalem, his birthday. Okay, happy birthday, Quintus. Okay, next. Quintus discum novum ferrebat. Okay, so Quintus was carrying a novum discum, a new discus. Okay, and this is the discus right here. Okay, it's a thing you throw. It's like a frisbee, but a little different and a little heavier too. Okay. Quintus amicis discum ostendit. All right. So Quintus showed the discus to his friends. Okay, so that's Quintus showing the discus to his friends. Check out my shiny new toy, boys. Postquam Quintus discum emissit, discus statuam percussit. All right, so postquam, that's just an adverb. Okay, so after Quintus threw the discus. Okay, new subject now. The discus struck the statue. Okay? Next. Eheu, statua nasum fractum habebat. Okay, oh dear. All right, this is just an interjection. You don't need to really mark that up. The statue, okay, was having a nasum fractum, a broken nose. Okay, now I know that sounds a little clunky, was having, but for all intents and purposes now, I want you to be literal with your translations. So habebat, okay, that's imperfect. Okay, that's the imperfect tense. That's the wasing whirring. Okay, so you need to translate it as was blanking, was having. Okay, just so that you show me that you know what it is. Okay, that's for now. Eventually, you'll your Latin selves will grow out of that. But for now, this is what I want. All right. Metella et Melissa in foro ambulabat. Okay, so Metella and Melissa were walking, in the forum. Okay, Metella filio donum quaerebat. All right, Metella was seeking a gift for her son. Okay. Feminae mercatorem conspexerunt. Right, so the women caught sight of the merchant, or you could say a merchant. Mercator feminis togas ostendit. Right. The merchant showed togas to the women. Okay. Next. Metella quinto togam elegit. Metella chose a toga for Quintus. Melissa mercatori pecuniam dedit. Okay, Melissa gave money to the merchant. Grumio cenam optimam in gulina parabat. Okay, so Grumio was preparing a very good dinner, cenam optimam, in the kitchen. Coccus quinto cenam parabat, quod diem natalem celebrabat. All right, so the cook was preparing dinner for Quintus. Okay, why? Because he was celebrating his diem natalem, his birthday. Okay? Moving along here. Molti hospites cum quinto cenabant. Many guests were dining. Whoops. Cum quinto, with Quintus. Clemens hospitibus vinum offerebat. Clemens was offering wine to the guests. Okay. Moving right along here. Ancilla triclinium intravit. The maidservant entered the dining room. Okay. Quintus ancillae signum dedit. Quintus gave the signal to the maidservant. Ancilla suaviter cantavit. The maidservant sang sweetly. All right, that's an adverb. Okay, so that's it for the model sentences. Now, I did color code them, and the color coding is going to continue throughout the lesson, and we're going to talk about what each color means. So without further ado, let's proceed to our grammar lesson. Today, we are going to be learning about the dative case. Yeah. All right, so this is the part of the program where you need to take out your notes, guys. All right, if you haven't been writing stuff down while we were going along before, now you need to take notes, because remember, you need to submit the notes. All right, make sure they are neat. Make sure I can read them. Make sure you can read them, okay, because you're going to need them to study for these final exam. All right. So here we go. Get ready to take notes. The topic is the dative case. Okay, and you can put today's date on it. Make sure you put your name on it too. Okay. So let's do a little quick noun review. All right, remember, in Latin, you've got two parts. You've got, well, two main components, really. You've got nouns and you've got verbs. Okay, today we're going to be focusing on nouns. All right, nouns have three characteristics: gender, number, and case. Okay, so when I ask you to parse, okay, if I say, you parse this noun, you're going to give me the gender of the noun, you're going to give me the number of the noun, and you're going to give me the case of the noun. Okay, these three characteristics are super important. They help us classify a noun so that we can tell how it functions in a sentence. Okay? All right, so that's important. That's why we need gender, number, and case. That's why we need those things. All right, and just as a quick review, let's go through these now. Okay, gender, you've got masculine, feminine, and neuter. Now remember, a noun's gender never changes. Okay, it's not going to change. It's going to remain the same. So if a noun is born into the Latin language as a feminine noun, it's going to remain a feminine noun. A masculine noun will remain masculine. Okay, they don't gender bend. They don't change gender. That's just the way the Latin language is. They're very, very concrete. Okay, and that's why when I give you the vocabulary lists, I always, always, always give you the noun with its gender. Okay, and remember that the gender of the noun does not necessarily have anything to do with the actual gender of the thing. Right, so for example, the word table in Latin, mensa, okay, that's feminine, but a table's not a girl. Okay, it's just kind of a weird thing. Right, it's not as concrete as you might think. All right, Moving forward, number, okay, it answers the question how many. Okay, singular is one, and plural is more than one. Okay. Nice. All right. Now the main focus, okay, so that was just review, gender and number. Know that those things exist and they will come into play later on when we do some sentence work. Okay, but now we're going to talk about case. Okay, and in Latin there are 5. Technically there are 7, but these are the main ones. Okay, you've got your nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative. Okay, so those are the 5 cases in Latin that we need to be most concerned with at this time. All right, so that's our noun review. Now for some new stuff. Okay, so why do we have case then? Okay, we have case because case tells us how the word is functioning in the sentence. Okay, so let's think about this for a minute. In English, in English, if you're going to sit down and read an English book, right, you're just going to read from left to right without stopping. And that's the correct order that the sentence should be in, right? So the word order or the syntax, okay, will help us establish meaning. Okay, English is pretty straightforward that way. That's why English is so cool. Now, Latin, on the other hand, for all of you National Treasure lovers, Latin's a bit more complex. It's more like a puzzle. Okay, syntax, or the word order, does not really help. It can help a little bit because there are stylistic patterns. Okay, so even with stylistic latinitas, order or patterns. So even with these common patterns, word order doesn't help establish meaning. Okay? So that's the difference between English and Latin. Now, the question is, if we can't rely on word order, how do we know what words are doing in the sentence? It's simple. Okay? You need endings. Okay? That's why we have case. All right? So please do me a favor now. If you need to pause the video, do so and write down the case and the noun job that case performs. Okay, so there are 5 of them. Please make sure you write them. And I'm going to go ahead and actually color code this for you right now. Right, so the nominative is for subject nouns and predicate nominatives. So if a word is in the nominative case, it's most likely going to be your subject noun. Okay, genitive is possession. Okay, oh goodness, I'm having a mega brain fart. I'm sorry. Okay, all right, genitive is for possession. Now, the dative case is for the indirect object. Okay, and that's going to be green. We're going to talk about that for the rest of this lesson. Okay, so you've seen nominatives before and you've seen accusatives before. All right, so if a word is in the accusative case, oftentimes it's the direct object, or it can be an object of the preposition. Okay, and we'll see some examples of that in a bit. Okay, the ablative case, just so you guys kind of get further knowledge of it, it's one of those super cases that takes on a lot of jobs that the nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative cannot do. So it's like this be-all case that, has all these extra functions. All right. So we've seen the nominative case before. We've seen accusatives before. And in the model sentences, you've seen now the dative case. Okay, the dative case is going to be our focus for the rest of this grammar lesson. So if you need more time on the screen, hit pause again. But if you're ready, I'm going to proceed and move forward. Okay, so let's work from English into Latin first to kind of help us establish what these things are in English, because we do in fact have them. Okay, so let's take a look at this sentence here. All right, Clemens gives wine to the girl. Okay, please write that down in your notes. All right, so if Clemens gives wine to the girl. Now, to help us determine, well, we need to determine three things here. Okay, we need to figure out what's the subject, what's the direct object, and what's the indirect object. Okay? And remember, I'm going to remind you of our color coding. Subject, nominatives, are going to be red. Direct objects are orange. And indirect objects are green. Okay, those datives. Now, in order to help us figure out which one's which, there are three questions, well, technically four. Three questions we need to ask ourselves to help us figure it out. First question, which is kind of not really a question, what's the verb here? Okay, so the verb is gives, right? That's the action that's happening in the sentence. Okay, now, once you've established the verb, the rest of the questioning is fairly simple. First question, who is doing the giving? Okay, who is doing the giving? That's Clemens. Clemens is doing the action of the verb, so he's our subject. All right, so we're going to highlight him in red. Second question, what is being given? Okay, so first question, who is doing the giving? Then next question, what is being given? Okay, well, wine is being given, all right? The wine is directly being affected by the giving, okay? It's because it's being given. So that is your direct object. And that goes in orange. Okay, now, the final question, who or what is being indirectly affected by the action of the verb? Okay, when I say indirectly being affected, okay, it's neither doing the action or directly receiving the action. Okay, Clemens is doing the action, the wine is receiving the action of the verb, right? But the girl just happens to be indirectly affected. Okay, she's your indirect object, so we're going to make her green. Okay? So that's how that works. Now, if you're not sure, really, what all this means, let's see if I can provide an illustration for you. Okay, so over here, we've got a billiard, or pool. I don't know if any of you have played pool before. Okay, but think of it this way. Okay, so our sentence, Clemens gives wine to the girl. And we're going to do this in red so we can see it. Okay, so in pool, the objective of the game is to use this stick to hit into this ball, okay? But you need to hit this ball into one of these so that you can knock them into the corner pockets, or into the pockets rather, okay? So in that way, let's think about this linguistically. Okay, so the person or thing doing the action of the verb, okay, the action is the hitting. okay, or the pooling. I don't know what the term is called. Okay, so this cue stick, or the stick rather, is the subject noun because it's doing the action. Okay, the action is hitting. So the stick hits the ball. Okay, the ball, this thing right here, is your direct object because it's directly being affected by the stick hitting it. Okay, the stick is doing the hitting, the ball is being hit. So the stick hit the ball. Okay, to one of these. All right, these are your indirect objects. Okay, because they're not doing the action of the verb or receiving the action of the verb, they're just kind of indirectly affected by the stick and the ball colliding. Okay? So it's kind of like coincidentally, like collateral damage almost, right? So same thing here. All right, think of Clemens using our example sentence. Clemens is the stick, the wine is the ball, and the girl is the stripes and solids that you gotta hit into these pockets. Okay? So that's kind of an example of how the indirect object works. I tried to illustrate that for you. If this is still confusing, it's okay. We're going to continue on and do some more practice with that. So moving forward. For the next couple of slides, we are going to be going through 7 examples of sentences. All right, and I'm going to illustrate to you using our color coding system what this all means. But before we do that, let's establish a key. Okay, so remember, subject nouns are nominative. This is going back to what we said before. All right, so a word in the nominative case is usually a subject noun. Okay, the direct object. All right, words in the accusative case are usually direct objects. All right, and today we've learned a new one. Okay, words in the dative case are typically indirect objects. Now, we're going to do the color coding this way. Okay, subject noun is red. Direct object is orange. Okay, and new indirect object is green. All right, but before we do that, let me just cut this out and copy it so I can put it on the following pages. All right, so the first sentence is Clemens was offering wine to the girl. All right, so now let's think about it. Kind of we're going to ignore this. Actually, that was not smart. Magistra, what are you doing? Stop being crazy. We're going to ignore that for now. Okay, so Clemens was offering wine to the girl. Let's think about it. First things first, what's the verb here? Okay, the verb is was offering. I'm going to make that a little thicker. All right, so now we need to ask ourselves, what's the subject, what's the direct object, and what's the indirect object? All right, and we have our 3 questions that we need to ask to determine that. So first question, who is doing the action of the verb? Well, Clemens is doing the offering. So he's our subject noun. Okay, now the wine is being offered. Okay, so it's the direct object. All right, now the girl is neither doing the offering or being offered. So she, naturally, is the indirect object. So let's color code that. Clemens is your subject noun. This is direct object. And this is dative. Okay, now, when we put this into Latin, you get Clemens, okay? He's in the nominative case. It's just a name. Okay, that's the name. Clemens was offering, okay, wine to the girl. Okay? Now let's think about what we're looking at here. Okay, Clemens is in the nominative case. Weenum, okay, comes from weenum weenie, which is a second declension neuter noun. It's got a um ending, okay? And remember, because it's our direct object, it needs to be accusative, okay? And look at that. It is an accusative ending. Okay, now over here, you've got puellai. All right, puella is a first declension noun. And that AE ending, okay, it can either be genitive, dative, or nominative. But here, okay, most likely because there's a verb of offering or showing or giving, right, it's going to be dative. Okay, that's a dative ending. All right, so that's how that works. We're going to move on to another example now. All right, so let's get rid of this for just the moment. And let's chunk out this sentence to see how many words we need. The young man handed over money to the slave. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so first things first, what's the verb here? The verb is handed over. Okay? Now, first question. Oh, I forgot to put our little key here. Sorry. First question. Who or what is doing the handing over? Well, the young man is doing the handing over, so he's the subject. So he's going to be in the nominative case. All right, that word's going to be nominative. Now, what is being handed over? Well, the money is. So it's directly being affected by the action of the verb. So that's going to need to be accusative. Okay, now we've got the slave who's neither doing the handing over nor is he being handed over. Right? He's indirectly being affected. So the slave is the IO. All right? Which means this is going to be green. Okay? So if we were to take that in Latin now, you've got the young man, the juvenis, okay, tradidit, handed over, pecuniam, money, servo, to the slave. Okay, now notice you only need one word to say to the slave in Latin. Okay, Latin's kind of efficient like that. It's pretty cool. So if we were to color code this, then you get juvenis, pecuniam, and servo. Okay? Now check out the endings here. All right, this is a third declension noun, juvenis, so it's going to have an unknown ending, but if you memorized your words in your vocabulary, you'd know that that's nominative. Okay, so that checks out. That's fine. Now, pecuniam, the ending is am, and pecunia pecuniae is a first declension feminine noun, and look at that, am, that's an accusative ending, so this can be your direct object. It's accusative. Now, servo, the ending is o, coming from servus servi, which is a second declension masculine noun. Okay, and look at that. O is in fact a dative ending. Okay? So therefore, it is your indirect object. All right? Moving forward. Okay, let's get rid of this real quick. Goodbye. Now we're gonna paste that thing over here. Yay. Now let's chunk out our sentence so we know what we're working with here. The master bought a statue for the merchant. Okay. So first things first, we must identify the verb. The verb is bought here. Okay. Now, we need to figure out what's the subject, what's the direct object, and what's the indirect object. And in order to do that, we need to ask those questions of ourselves. Question number 1, who or what is doing the buying? Well, the master is doing the buying because the master bought something, right? So he's the subject noun. So he is going to be nominative. All right, so it's going to be one of these endings. All right, now, what is being bought? The statue is being bought. So a statue is going to be your direct object. All right, and that accusative ending, it's got to be accusative, so it's going to be one of these endings here. All right, now for the merchant. Now, who or what is being indirectly affected by the action of the verb? The answer is it's the merchant. Okay, because the merchant is neither doing the buying nor being bought, so he is your indirect object here. All right, so let's, and in Latin you only need one word in the dative case to say for the merchant, and that one word is going to be mercator mercatoris with a dative singular ending. All right, so now let's unveil what we got. The dominus, the master, okay, and that checks out. Check out, it's a dominus domini, it's a nominative ending. Statuam, okay, actually let's color code this too so we don't confuse ourselves. Statuam, okay, and check it out, that is an accusative ending. All right, and mercatori. Okay, mercatori is your dative for the merchant. And look at that. That's a dative ending. Okay? So that's how that works. Next example. Oops. La 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 la. Oh. And Magistra forgot to put this away. Shh. Just for a minute. Okay. I don't know why I'm whispering. So Grumio prepared a dinner for the slave girls. Now, first things first, what's the verb? The verb is prepared. Okay? Oh, and Magistra didn't chunk out the sentence for us. Prepared a dinner for the slave girls. Oh, Grumio's a ladies' man, I guess. Wonderful. So prepared is the verb. Now, we need to figure out what's the subject, what's the direct object, and what's the indirect object of the sentence. Okay, we have our 3 questions that we need to ask in order to figure that out. Question number 1, who is doing the preparing? Well, that's Grumio. So Grumio is our subject. Okay. Now, what is being prepared? Well, the dinner is being prepared. Okay, so that's our direct object. Let's color code as we go. So Grumio, he's going to have to be in the nominative case. It's going to be one of these endings. All right, and dinner is our direct object, which is going to be accusative. It's got to be one of these endings here. Okay, now the slave girls are neither doing the preparing or being prepared. Okay, they're just indirectly being affected by the main sentence here. Okay, it's just like extra information. Also, sorry for my creaky chair. It might be annoying you. It's driving me nuts. Okay. Now that is going to be a word in the dative case, okay, for the girls. It's got to have one of these endings here. All right. So let's see what we got. Grumio. Okay, now notice Grumio is a third declension noun, so it's not going to have a particular ending that matches. You just kind of have to know it. So Grumio parawit, prepared. Kanam. All right, now let's take a look at kanam. Kanam is our direct object. It's supposed to be accusative, and look at that. Kana kanai. It's got an am ending here, so that is accusative. All right, now ankilis is the word that we use to say for the slave girls. Okay, so that's going to be green. And check it out. Ankila ankilai is a first declension noun, and is is a dative ending, so it checks out. All right, so Grumio prepared the dinner for the slave girls. Okay, moving along here. Example 5. Let's get rid of this goodbye. And we'll put that thing right over here. Woohoo. Alright, so Quintus showed the discus to his friends. Alright, so first things first, let's chunk this. Whoops. Let's chunk this out. Quintus showed the discus to his friends. Okay, so this is going to be a 4-word sentence. Now, first things first, the verb is showed. Okay. Now, we need to figure out who's the subject, who's the direct object, and who's the indirect object in this sentence. And we have our questions to answer that. Question number 1. Who or what is doing the showing? Well, that's Quintus. So that's going to be our subject noun. And subject nouns, as our key says, is going to be in the nominative case. So that's going to have one, our Latin word's going to have one of these endings here. Now, Quintus is doing the showing. What is being shown? Well, the discus is being shown. It's directly being affected by the action of the verb. And our direct objects have to be in the accusative case. So it's going to have one of these endings here. All right, now, to his friends. All right, well, the friends are not doing the showing, and the friends aren't being shown. Okay, they just happen to be indirectly affected. So these are your IO, your indirect object. It's going to be green. Okay, and indirect object is dative case, so it's going to have one of these endings here. Okay? Now let's see what we've got. So Quintus, subject noun. Okay? And check it out. Okay, Quintus, that US ending is nominative. Ostendit, showed. The discus, now let's take a look at that word. Okay, discum comes from discus, disci, and in fact, that is an accusative ending. Okay, now amicis, to his friends, it's going to be dative, so we're going to just color that and take a look here, that is ending, so amicus, amici, that is is in fact a dative ending. Okay, so it checks out. The endings check out. All right, moving right along here. Let's paste that right there. Yeah. And get rid of this pie. See you later. Change that so I don't mess it up again. All right, so let's chunk it. The slaves gave food to the lions. All right, so first things first, our verb, what is it? Well, it's gave, so we're going to mark that up with a V. Now, we need to be Latin detectives and figure out what's my subject, what's my direct object, and what's my accusative. And what's my indirect object. Okay, so we have our questions that we need to ask. Who or what is doing the giving? Well, it's the slaves. They're doing the action of the verb, so they're a subject noun. That means the slaves are going to be nominative. Now, food is being given. So that's your direct object. And direct objects need to be in the accusative case. So the word for food is going to have to be in the accusative case. Now, to the lions are neither doing the giving nor being given. So they are the indirect object. And for indirect objects, the word lion needs to be in the dative case, meaning it's going to have a dative ending. Okay? So let's see what we got. So the servi, that's nominative, and check it out, that's a nominative ending. Dederunt, gave, kibum, okay, that's accusative. Leonibus, to the lions. Okay? So you see kind of how this is starting to work. Sorry, let me just color code this for completion's sake, because otherwise I'm gonna cry. Wah. Alright? So that's that. Final example. Okay. First things first, let's get rid of this goodbye. And then we're going to change that. And then we're going to paste this. And then we're going to hang out, because that's cool. Alright, so the master gave a sign to the slave. So our verb, well, first we chunk. So the master gave a sign to the slave, and he opened up his eyes. He saw the sign. So, verb, gave, question. Who's doing the giving? The master is doing the giving, so he's our subject noun. Subject nouns need to be nominative. Okay? Now, what's being given? The sign is being given. That's your direct object. Okay? So the direct object has to be in the accusative case. So it's going to be one of these endings here. All right. And who or what is being indirectly affected by the verb? That's the slave. Okay, so indirect object, it's got to be green, it's got to be dative. Okay. So let's see what we've got. The dominus, the master. And check it out. That's a nominative ending. So we're going to color that in red. Yeah. Dated, gave. A signum. Okay, let's see what we got. Signum ends in um. Check it out. Okay. And servo. Okay, ends in o. Alright, and that is dative. It's green. Okay? Now, let's put all this information together. The big takeaway. Alright, so these are all the sentences that we just did together with their English translations. Now, plain and simple, okay, these, to the girl, to the slave, for the merchant, for the slave girls, to his friends, to the lions, and to the slave. Okay, now I asked you yesterday to look at these sentences and see if you can figure out a commonality that these words and translations have. Okay, the big takeaway is that each of these has either to or for in it. Okay, so when, the big takeaway, when you see a Latin noun in the dative case, translate it with either to or 4. Okay, second big takeaway. 2 or 4 are the key words for the dative case. Alright, so anytime you see a dative, 2 or 4 is your go-to. Alright, and it can also help you identify what the dative is in English, the indirect object. Okay, just one final example. Actually, no, I'm going to leave that there. We're going to stop right there. Okay, so make sure you have these 2 big takeaways written down. All right, and again, I do want to see that you've submitted your notes for today. Okay, in addition to that, can you write down maybe 2 questions that you either have and need it to be answered, or think would be good test questions that I could ask you based on today's lesson? Okay, so post your notes and ask me 2 questions about today's lesson. All right, and they could be questions you know the answer to. All right, they don't have to be actual questions. If they are real questions, though, that would be preferable. All right, so that's it. I'll talk to you guys later. Walete, Skippily.